today we're going to try something a little different. We're going to do a review of the Fairies in Moonstone.
From buying your first box of minis and paint to being a competent player at the gaming table, we have you covered.
We play every miniature game at a heroic level. We'd like to take a moment and thank our sponsors and Patreons that keep the channel going, plus you for watching the videos. Be heroic and click that subscription button.
Welcome in, everybody. We're going to take and try something a little different today. What I'm going to do is it's Moonstone. It's not a battle report, but I'm going to go over the faction. I guess I'm going to call it a faction. It's Dominion, but there's a few Leshavult, and there's one Leshavult fairy. But it's just the fairies. So I've been playing the fairies, kind of have an understanding of them. Not perfect, not this, not that. But this really just to give you an insight of what they can do, what they can't do, what to look for when you play them, and if you're wanting to play them, what options you have when you play them. So I am not a in-depth Moonstone player, just really started playing it, so I'm going to try it. Leave a comment if you like it, let me know, say hey, don't do those anymore, just stick to the battle reports, whatever. Just like I said, just something different. Going to try it and see how it goes as I'm working on some other things that'll come out here in the next couple of weeks. So with that being said, we'll take and kind of get into it. So I'm going to flip the camera here if it does what it's supposed to. Nope, there it goes. Cool, there they are. So in your fairy in the fairies, you've kind of got your boxes here. You got 4 main boxes for fairies. You have one fairy that's in the Leshavult. I don't own that one. And then you also have one that comes with the goblins. I do have that one. That's Herbert, and so I'll go over him as well in the group. It's interesting for Herbert and the one from Leshavult, and I cannot remember her name. I'm so awful. I don't know if they really play. Like, I hadn't had a chance really to play with them to see how they would take and work into it. So we'll take and flip. So that's going to be that. As you've got your boxes, so in your fairies, we'll kind of just run through it. You've got Vespa, which is by themselves. You're going to have Freya, the Fencer, and Tito in one box. You're going to have Butterfingers, Wasp, and Silvertongue in one box. And then Foxglove, Diana, which is my favorite one, and Belladonna, which is pretty cool, in a box as well. I have them all out on the table. They're strode out in our Moonstone arena here at Heroic Skill Gamers. Before we go too much further, I'd like to also thank the Patreons. Greatly appreciate them. Without them, wouldn't be able to do it. And then our sponsors, the 2 Houston stores, The Forge and Dragon's Lair. Greatly appreciate them for allowing us to be able to take and do the things we do. And last but not least, Goblin King Games. Just greatly appreciate the way they have embraced the channel to work with us on some different things, so greatly appreciate them. Without further ado, I'm going to flip this here. So really, I'm going to start out with different ones, but I am going to start out with, I think, Diana. I'm going to kind of run through some cards. Fairies play style is going to be very, very, very interesting from a standpoint of they do not have tons of health, and they do not like to get hit. So if you're playing fairies, if you want to be up in the face, swords, fighting, stomping, and doing that, fairies is not your play style. If you want to be dipping, diving, and casting spells and trying to be sneaky, fairies are very much your play style. They, as you notice, we'll kind of go through the cards, hit the high spots on everything. The cards are out, so you can read them. I just want to show kind of the things that make me understand it as we go through most of all the fairies. Not starting with Diana, but you'll see most of them for their signature move is either high guard or low guard, and the reason being so they don't take damage in combat somewhat or reduce it. So they're not a very combat oriented thing, even though some of them do have some great stats. I mean, 4 attack is pretty good if you think about it. If you're attacking, you get 2. She does have sweep and cut. Wasp has 5 attacks. Fencer has 6. You have a few that have 2 or 3, but for the most part, pretty good from that standpoint. Most of them do have a 1-inch engagement, though. So, like I said, combat's not that. But what's really cool is the magic side of it. So I'm going to kind of break down the cards, and then I'll kind of show you the combos of things that I've kind of messed with. So Diana is really cool. She is a great one to bring. Most of the fairies have -2 evade. I think only one of them has a 0, and that's Vespa. And Herbert only has a -1. So trying to have magic done on them is very difficult because if you're going to get behind stuff, you're at -3. So it's really difficult for things to be pulled off against them. And if you can keep things at range and not take just damage being hit, you really have a good chance to play. Now, one of the things, if you notice on Diana, which most of them do, there's a few that actually are weaker than that. Most of them have weaklings. Some of them have feeble. Let me pull. I'll pull Freya because she's my other favorite. These are kind of my two that I love just playing with because Freya is just a great healer. A lot of people like her for her magic spell doing damage, but I like her for her healing. But feeble and weak. So basically, digging up moonstones. You spend the energy to dig up the moonstones. They have to have 2 to be able to take and dig up 1. So every depth is 2 energy to do it. But if you notice, they are loaded with energy. However, they don't have a lot of health. So if they start getting hit, then they don't have energy as well. Even though, like in Freya with her health bar 5, she gets 5 energy, but 1 damage and she's already starting to hurt. So you really have to be careful on how much damage you take. You need to be able to use the terrain. You need to use distances. And to be honest with you, for me, when I think of the fairies, when you're playing with your models, it's activations when you're activating. So you want to activate to make sure you're getting max use without getting max returns. So you always want to make sure your distances are right, your 6-inch move for your 6-inch spells and so forth. So that's the biggest thing for fairies. Is also they're going to be -1 on doing damage when they actually do damage to people. Unless you're feeble, it's -2 when you do damage. So like I said, Freya's is high guard. I'm just going to show it right quick. She deals no damage, but she also takes no damage. So that's what's really, really cool is they don't do a lot. So they're not really combat oriented. They want to take and use their arcane abilities. They've all got good arcane stats from that standpoint to be able to take and do those. When you break down the fairies, so they come, like I said, they're going to be kind of sections the way I look at them. You're going to have Diana, which she's just kind of, she is your fairy noble. She is a nice beat stick for using arcane cards, but she also damages other fairies to get those. So for her, when you bring her in the list, you always want to make sure either her and 2 other fairies or however is close so that you're taking and getting cards. She gets the 4 arcane. Most of the time I'm damaging 3 fairies when I'm doing either one of the abilities here, Feed on Fear or Horrifying Visions, because I'm getting 10 cards, so I'm able to find the high pinks. The other thing is, most of the time, depending on who you bring, if you bring Silver Tongue or somebody around for bluffing, I don't ever really bluff. I want as many pinks in my hand as possible. And then I'll manipulate using the pinks to try and get you to call my bluff so I can flip more pinks to do more damage or steal more energy. The biggest thing for Diana is her activation is really cool for being able to use her fear on Feed on Fear. And there's 2 ways you can use it on yourself to get energy on another fairy that you really want to be able to do some things, and I'll show some different tricks there. Or the other one that I really like is if once you've kind of gotten in that engagement range, that bubble, she can take and steal energy. And if she steals energy, if you take any damage, you get the cards that say it's 3. So if you think about most other factions that you're going to play, have 3 to 4 energy, sometimes 2 to 3 energy, depending on what it is. If I can steal the energy off that person, they can get their move. If they're carrying a Moonstone, they only get a 2-inch move. But I have limited almost for that round, killed one of their models because it has no energy to actually do anything. The other neat thing is because I get to distribute among the other fairies, playing pure fairies, I get to kind of put it where I need to make sure that I can do it. So when I was showing Freya earlier, she has 5 energy, but all her spells cost 2. So if I can give her 1 other energy, she can do 3 spells versus just 2 spells. So that's what you want to look at with that. And then the fear is Freya can take 1, and then you can give herself 1, so she's got 2 more to be able to do the horrifying vision, or is it horrifying visions, which is X+1 magical damage. And again, damaging fairies to get the 6 cards, so you get 10 cards. So most of the time when she's done 6 damage, or no, 9 damage sometimes, because I go 3, 3, and 3. So because of that, I always end up saying the good one to bring with her is Freya, because Freya does have Trickster. And if she takes and does a bluff, she gets more energy. So if I use Diana to go, all right, Diana's going to boom, hit, pull some energy, do some damage, hurt a ton of fairies, and then I want Freya to be the next one to activate so that she can go heal everybody back up full. So it's a 1-2 combo. If you bring Diana, you can't use her hurt as much if you don't have a good healer. Noel is a good healer. I just like Freya because she's trickster, because I can get her to have 6 energy. That means it's 3 heals. If they call my bluff and I've got multiple blues, then I get to do it again. So most of the time, unless cards just go awry, I'm able to get those 9 wounds healed back up to where I only feel like I've taken 1 or 2. And because I'm able to take and get so many cards, I'm able to actually dish out a lot of damage. Dishing out damage, stealing that, forces the other person to interact by healing so they don't lose a model as well. So it's just another good way to take and use these 2 combos. So these are kind of 2 staples that I always like to bring. The other ones that you've got, we'll kind of go through this. I don't want to make this forever and long. Is you've got 2 soldiers, and I kind of call these the other 2 staples, meaning your choice, whatever you would like, either Vespa or Wasp. Vespa's pretty cool. Vespa is not a weakling, so therefore she is able to pick up stones without having to cost extra energy. But as you can see, she only has 3 energy, so she doesn't get the energy like the fairies do for that standpoint. She does have her javelin. She does have the ability not to get hit in combat, but she can be swung at because her evade is magic is 0. But she could be a what I call a person that goes to get the moonstones, trying to keep out of combat, trying to move around and do things like that. I've had interesting interactions with that. I'm not saying I'm sold on it. I kind of like Wasp better because Wasp allows me to spend the 3 to tell another fairy, hey, you're not a weakling. Now, it doesn't work on feeble, but it does work on the weaklings so that they can dig them up. So if there's 4 or 5 energy, they can pick them up, and I'll show you a trick here in a minute with one of the neat characters that I like doing for movement and playing the game and picking up some stones. But those for that. The other thing I like about Wasp is he's got a 2-inch engage, just like Vespa. However, Wasp cannot be critted. So Wasp is just that front line, hey, if you're going to fight, here's the person you're going to have to deal with. I'm going to stop you from digging up stones. I'm going to tell my buddies in the back that are back there casting magical spells, hey, do your things, get the stones. There's 7 stones. We need to get our stones and make it through the night so that we can take and make our money in the morning. So Wasp is really good from that. The rage piece, he can't be critted. From that standpoint. So that's why I like him. Vespa is okay if you want to make, but I just feel like she has to be the one to get the stones. Then you take and say, hey, no combat to me. So it's very interesting from that standpoint. So for me, Wasp almost becomes my 3rd staple because I prefer to have Wasp being able to take and change that up. And then we kind of go into, so what I'm going to do is next I'm going to go into 4 cards because they all have the same keyword. And I think this is actually really neat. Probably won't be able to get them all up there. I won't. We're going to kind of do it like this, and then I'll pull them out. But they come in different boxes. They're not all in the same box, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Silver Tongue is by himself. Foxglove and Belladonna are together with Diana, which makes sense. And then you have the Fencer, which comes in the 3rd box. But if you all notice, they have Fairy Rogue, Fairy Rogue, Fairy Rogue. And what makes that really cool is if you're playing all fairies, I'm going to kind of flip it to Belladonna. Belladonna has this neat ability where she can swap with another friendly rogue 8 inches for 2 energy. She starts with 5. So depending on how the stone sets fall, so everybody knows you drop your stones and you take and you have those. If the stones fall where I have 4 on my side of the table that are accessible, it doesn't really matter how deep. I like going with what I call my rogue list because Belladonna has the ability to do the trickster. If they're not, and I just need a killer, she's really cool because they're dropping Nightshade. She gets the catastrophe. She's got movement. She does those things. But the biggest thing for me with her is the trickster piece. And I'll explain what the other 3, what I basically can do. So the other 3 full goal is to take, because they are rogues, and get positioned next to stones. So in turn 1, Silver Tongue, one of his cool abilities is he gets to give other fairies energy. So I have him give Belladonna energy because my whole goal is to give her energy. Sometimes if may not run all 3 of them, it just depends. But Silver Tongue is one because he gives energy. The Fencer is nice because the enfeeblement and the 6 attacks. So basically I can keep people from doing a ton of damage through to me. Again, with all the cards being defensive on their signatures, a lot of them, if I can reduce any kind of melee damage, then it allows me not to take damage on the fairies, which means they get to live longer. But then also Foxglove, I've not been sold on it, but her 2 times magical damage is pretty good. It's just she's on 3 arcane, so it gets a little tricky there. Her protection's okay, but if you're playing fairies the way you probably need to, where you're keeping your distance, protections may not be as necessary. So most of the time, she comes out and becomes these two here. If I'm running with a stone heavy side, if the moonstones are heavy on my side, what I like to do is I use these two, one Silver Tongue to give Belladonna energy. I'll use Diana to steal energy, even if it's from, say, Fencer, on my own side of the table, because I want Belladonna to have as much energy as possible. And then, of course, so it would be like these three, maybe not Fencer, maybe it's just these two. It's however I want to take and do it. Diana, and then I'll have Wasp. And then what I'll do with Wasp is tell Belladonna to be not a weakling. If I've positioned all the rogue fairies where they need to be, what happens is Belladonna, because this doesn't say once per turn, she's not weak. I've given her, say, 2 energy from Silver Tongue. I've stolen, say, 2 energy from somebody else for Diana given to her. So she's got 5, she's got 9. So 2, she can bounce to a stone. Most of the time I can set her up on a stone, works nicely. So say she can go, cool, I'm going to move my 4 here, or I'm going to do this here. I'm going to dig this stone for 1. Now I'm down to 8. I'm going to spend 2 to land where Silver Tongue's at. I'm going to spend 2 there to dig that one up. Now I've got 2 stones. So that was 8, 2, 6, 4. I'm going to use 2 to go to the Fencer, 1 to take and do it, or 2 to get that. And then I have my 2-inch move. So within 1 turn, she's now grabbed 3 stones, and she's 2 inches going towards the next stone away from everybody on the other side of the table. So her ability, if the stones have been laid right, so these are part of my 8, so I have the option to get them, she can actually get in there, get the stones, and get away. So it's really neat from that standpoint. Some of the other fairies, so that's just giving different ideas on how to possibly use the fairies, not just always combat or always magic. There's a lot of movement and different things there. The next 2, which are really cool, and I'll kind of throw them up as well, is Tito and Butterfingers. And the reason I like them is Tito, 1, can't be targeted. If she does, she gets to tell him to target someone else. If she has the misdirection, which is 4, so most of the time you'll set that on that. I'm sorry, what is it? Arcane redirection doesn't cost anything. The misdirection is 4 to move somebody. So she's good at moving people off of stones, moving people back, keeping distance. So her goal is never really to let you get close. She's just always pushing back, pushing back. So she's a great also frontline person, because she can get up and go, nope, we're going to push you back 3. So if somebody had a stone, you moved them back 3, they only get to move 2 instead. It's going to cost them an energy in their move just to get back to where they were, which forces them to be short there. And her high guard is, again, opponent deals 0 damage. So she really, really is defensive. And because of her arcane redirection, if the enemy player targets, she can spend 3 energy if she has it to have them choose a different target. I think. Yeah, can have them target something else. So that's really cool for her. So she's one of those where people really don't want to hit if she's setting on energy. So it's good to have that. Again, she has 5 arcane from that standpoint, but she's got 4 on her attack. So she's really cool. And then Butterfingers has the Fizzy Pop, but the biggest thing from Butterfingers is looking for the 3 with 5 arcane. You find a 3 to drop the stone. So Butterfingers is great for in the end when the game's really close. You're like, oh, let me see if I can hit this to get them to drop a stone. If they're dropping a stone, the stone's going down. Yes, it's on 1, but that means you're spending 1 energy. Again, when you're playing a lot of other factions, fairies have a ton of energy, and so I get spoiled when I take and play into some of the other ones. If you're burning an energy and you only have 2, or you had 3 and your health's down, you only have 2, that means that's 1 less attack, that's 1 less this, that's 1 less that, because you got to pick that moonstone back up. So just being able to force them to pick up moonstones is actually really good from that standpoint. And then you can, so Butterfinger's kind of like with Fencer, where Fencer can go, I'm going to show this because these are defensive buffs to help again. Where Fencer can say, hey, you're enfeebled, we're going to make you minus X damage. You can actually give Clumsy to 1 to a target to make them actually a weakling. So it's just some different things you could do. He starts off with 5. You could have them drop the stone and then turn them into a weakling. So they have to spend 2 energy to pick it up. There's a lot of things you can do with Butterfingers to manipulate how they're doing, and then the weakling also the -1 damage. So Butterfingers has a lot of play from a very defensive standpoint. Playing the game, he's not a very combat just killy. He does have Physippop, which is damage, but just from a defensive standpoint on that. And then I'll show. So I don't have the level Vault one, but Herbert Growbottom has the fairy. He is a goblin. He is a wizard. He can take and he can put out wooded patches and magical damage. Can't take grub if you have him. And others can't step through wooded patches. And then he can move through the wooded patches. But what's really interesting is he doesn't have a lot that plays into the whole fairy combo. So for me, I don't use him a lot. I really stick to all the fairies when I'm playing pure fairies. So yeah, that's kind of some thoughts and different ideas. Again, fairies gameplay is very keep my distance, cast some spells, get some stones, and try to take and move around a little bit from that standpoint. We're going to see if we can do this here while I'm on this. And we're going to see this. Yes, there we go. Almost got me. Oh, maybe got me. There we go. Cool. So that is fairies. If you're playing them, you want to try to clump them if you've got pulses. Pulses work good against them because, again, they don't have a lot of wounds. 5 wounds, 6 wounds each. If you're doing damage to them, they're losing their energy. If they don't have energy, it's tough for them to actually work. They really want to have the energy. That's why most of the time you'll see Freya or you'll see Noel, because they're going to be healing up so that they can finish the turn full health to get their energy back. They do have a lot of maneuvering shenanigans. If you see wasps coming, know that they're going to be picking and choosing the one to be strong to pick up the moonstones. Again, that kind of gets hurt if you stop wasps and you get him down. Diana and Freya are a really good combo together. They almost, in my opinion, become staples. The other thing is, if you're watching, again, like I said in the beginning, if you're watching the activations, if Diana activates and does damage to do the massive that she can put out, you want to be in a position to rebuttal that and go, oh, you hurt that fairy 2 or 3 times. That means it only got 32 health. Let me go ahead and try to kill it. You want to have that happen. If you go, oh, I want to try to protect something, and you go into save mode, if they have Freya, the next activation is going to be Freya. Freya's healing them back up, and so you'll lose that opportunity to actually get a model off the table. So if you can, after Diana goes, always go after what has been hurt, if possible. If not, try to regroup, because they're just it's gonna be like they did all the damage and then they're back to full health. If you can get into close combat with them, it's good. They have enough stuff to pull their high guards and low guards, so most of the time they're trying to be defensive. They're not really trying to look to do damage, so always think that through when you're choosing your actual combat guards. Okay, if they go high guard, if they go low guard. If they do have sweeping cut or some of the others, then possibly think about that. But yeah, I mean, I've got, let's see here, I've got thrust on Fencer. I've got falling swing on Vespa, falling swing on Wasp, sweeping cut on Diana. So 4 of them. The rest of them is high guard, high guard, high guard. Oh, rising attack on Silver Tongue, high guard, low guard, and high guard. So most of them all is high guard. So they're really going, hey, don't hit me, don't hit me. Because they have the -2 evade, you really don't get to take and get through on the arcane, because most of the time you're drawing 2 to 3 cards, maybe 1 card, depending on what it is. If I'm behind something, so it's -3 on the evade. So magic-wise, they kind of hold people off at that. Their magic output, most of them is arcane 4 or higher. Not all, but there's a few 3s, but most of them is 4 or higher. So their ability to put in some work on the arcane side is amazing. They're not going to be meleeing you. So if there's terrain, from a defensive standpoint, you always want to try to make sure you're getting -1 evade for some kind of cover, trying to negotiate that so that they're reducing the amount of cards they get to try to stop their magic outputs or their manipulation they're doing. They're not really going to come into combat with you. And a lot of times what you want to do is, you may not necessarily want to worry about the moonstones on your side of the table. Just try to get across the table to touch them. The closer you can get to fairies, the quicker you can get to fairies, the better off you are. If you try to play the game, I'm going to get my moonstones, you're going to get your moonstones, and I'm going to try to take and make you drop it, you may run into where they just can outrange you because of their arcane abilities. So that's just a little bit insight. I probably messed some of it up. That's my insight on how I see them being played, how I see to play into them. Again, if you've made it this far, you like this kind of stuff, let me know. I'll look at trying to take and look at another faction scenario, set it up, go through, start playing with it a little bit and figuring that out. I do eventually want to have all the models so I can take and do it with all the models. If you don't like this, just let me know. Hey, that was not helpful, not useful at all. And hey, cool. No, it does not hurt my feelings. I'm always just trying to see what people like to see and what people don't like to see. So any comment below would greatly be appreciated. Thank you very much, and everybody have a good one.